And finally, for today's episode, let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history.
This week, we hear about the opening of the Washington Sanitarium, which is now the new Adventist Healthcare White Oak Medical Center.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On June 14 in 1905, Kansas Sanitarium opened in the city of Wichita in the U.S. state of Kansas. The Nebraska Sanitarium had opened a branch clinic in Wichita in 1902, and in 1903 the Kansas Conference brought Dr. George A. Droll in to become its director. Under his leadership, the clinic's mission expanded, and thus in 1905 it became a sanitarium, with a school of nursing attached. New buildings were constructed in the heart of Wichita, and by 1917 more than 1,000 patients were being treated annually. However, thereafter a decline set in. By 1928, the debts of Wichita Sanitarium and Hospital, as it had been renamed, were so significant that the Central Union Conference felt obliged to close the hospital. It's a reminder that church institutions don't always go from strength to strength, that sometimes they have to be closed for the good of the mission. But in contrast, 1 year and 364 days after the opening of Kansas Sanitarium, Washington Sanitarium and Hospital opened on June 13, 1907. After the move of the General Conference headquarters from Battle Creek, Michigan to Washington, D.C. in 1904 and 1905, church leaders took the opportunity to found a new sanitarium in a city that had not previously had a strong Adventist presence. Dr. Daniel Kress and his wife, Dr. Loretta Kress, who had been medical missionaries in Australia, provided leadership to the new institution, which proved a success. In 1973, it was renamed Washington Adventist Hospital, and just 3 years ago it opened a new campus and was renamed Adventist Healthcare White Oak Medical Center. One of the oldest continuously operating Adventist hospitals in the world, today it is a 180-bed acute care hospital that treats some 70,000 patients annually. And on June 15, 1862, the Vermont Conference was organized by several small congregations in the U.S. state of Vermont, which had a total of 45 members. Albert Stone was elected the first chairman and Stephen Pierce the first secretary. Vermont later was to become the first conference to give its entire Sabbath school offering to missions, a practice which of course later became common. Today, Vermont is part of the Northern New England Conference. And that was This Week in Seventh-day Adventist History.